Welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're going to tackle a huge question, maybe one of the biggest in all of biology. Are there universal rules that all life has to play by?
I mean, think about it. What could possibly connect a tiny little shrew to a massive elephant? Or how does a salmon find its way back to the exact stream it was born in? Well, the answer lies in a single set of rules, the fundamental mechanics of how life actually works.
And that field is called physiology. It's the science that doesn't just ask what an organism is, but gets into the nitty-gritty of how it does what it does. How does it survive? How does it thrive? How does it navigate its world?
So here's our game plan for today. First, we'll look at the big picture of how life works. Then we're going to follow a salmon on its absolutely incredible journey. After that, we'll uncover some of life's universal rules, explore the super important art of keeping things in balance, and then we'll wrap it all up with the 4 pillars of this amazing science.
All right, first up, the science of how life works. Let's dig into why physiology is really the ultimate connector in biology, the thing that links the tiniest molecule to an entire ecosystem.
Okay, so to really get how life works, scientists have these 2 really powerful ways of looking at things. First, there's reductionism, which is basically just breaking things down into their smallest possible parts, like studying just one single gene. But then there's emergence. And this is the idea that the whole is way more than the sum of its parts. It's like you can't understand the power of a symphony just by looking at one musical note, right? All these new amazing properties just emerge when all the pieces start working together.
All right, let's look at a powerful story that shows just how all these levels connect. We're talking from the gene all the way up to survival. And for that, we need to talk about salmon.
So we're looking at the Fraser River salmon, and every single year these fish undertake this absolutely epic journey. They have to get back to the stream where they were born to reproduce. And believe me, this is not a casual swim. It's a brutal, brutal test of endurance against insane currents in water that's getting warmer and warmer. But this is where it gets really fascinating. It turns out not all salmon are created equal. Just look at this data. You've got the Weaver salmon population. They have a pretty short migration, and they start to fail once the water hits 21 degrees Celsius. That's about 70 Fahrenheit. But then look at the early Stewart population. They travel way further, and they can power through water that's almost a blistering 28 degrees Celsius. That's 82 Fahrenheit. So what's going on? Well, what's their secret? This slide gives us a huge clue. Researchers found a direct link. The early Stewart salmon, they've evolved these significantly larger, more powerful hearts compared to their Weaver cousins. I mean, their engine is literally bigger, built for that much tougher journey. And this is integration in action. It's a perfect chain reaction. You've got a tiny difference in their genes, which controls these things called transcription factors. Think of them like molecular light switches that turn genes on or off. That switch dictates their heart size, which determines how well they can swim in warm water, and that ultimately decides if the entire population survives. It's a perfect story, really, from DNA all the way to destiny.
So that whole salmon story really shows that survival is all about adaptation. And that brings us perfectly to our next big idea, that all life, no exceptions, has to play by the universal rules of physics, chemistry, and evolution.
I mean, when you boil it down, every single biological process is just about transferring energy. Thinking, that's electrical energy. Moving your arm, mechanical energy. Your metabolism, that's all chemical energy. Life doesn't get a free pass here. It has to obey the fundamental laws of science. And you know what? Simple physics can explain some incredible differences in how animals are designed. Just take a cheetah and a lion. As you can see, it really all comes down to levers. The cheetah's muscle is attached close to the joint, which creates this long lever arm, perfect for incredible speed. The lion's muscle attaches further away, making a shorter, much more powerful lever, perfect for wrestling prey. It's just basic mechanics, but the result is 2 perfectly engineered predators. Now, evolution has also given life this amazing superpower. It's called phenotypic plasticity. And what it is this incredible ability for one single set of genes to create totally different physical traits just depending on the environment. It's kind of like having a built-in toolkit that lets you adapt on the fly without ever having to change your actual DNA. And you see this stuff everywhere in nature. These tiny little water fleas, Daphnia, they only grow these defensive helmets and spines when they sense a predator is nearby.
And get this is even more dramatic. A solitary, kind of normal green grasshopper, if you raise it in a crowd, it will physically transform into a swarming migratory locust. It's the same genes, but a completely different animal. It's all triggered by the environment. How cool is Okay, so this ability to respond to the outside world, that leads us straight into our next key principle, this constant struggle that all organisms have to maintain a stable internal world, no matter how chaotic it is on the outside. And animals basically have two main strategies for this. You've got your conformers, who just kind of go with the flow. Their insides match whatever's happening on the outside. But then you have regulators, and that includes us. We fight back. We burn a ton of energy to keep our internal state constant and stable, no matter what's going on out there. So how do regulators pull this off? It's through a process called homeostasis. The best way to think about it is like your body's internal thermostat. It's constantly using these clever feedback loops to keep everything from your temperature to your blood sugar within this really narrow, stable range. It's a constant dynamic balancing act, 24/7. Okay, now this table here is awesome because it completely busts the old myths of just warm-blooded and cold-blooded. The reality is so much more interesting. You have to think about two things. Where does the heat come from, and how stable is the temperature? So you and I, we're endotherms. We make our own heat. But check out the Antarctic icefish. It's an ectotherm, meaning it gets its heat from the outside. But because it lives in water that is always at a constant freezing temperature, it's also a homeotherm. Its body temperature never really changes. So it's cold-blooded but with a perfectly stable temperature. Wild, right? Okay, so let's bring this all home. Everything we've been talking about can really be boiled down to 4 foundational pillars. This is basically the rule book for how all life works. And here they are. Number 1, physiology is integrative. It connects everything from genes to ecosystems, just like we saw with those salmon. Number 2, it obeys the laws of chemistry and physics. No getting around those. Number 3, it's shaped by evolution. And finally, number 4, it is constantly regulated to maintain that all-important internal balance. And yet, even with this powerful rulebook, there are still these huge mysteries. For more than 120 years, scientists have been scratching their heads over this one question. Why does a single gram of a tiny shrew's body burn energy so much faster, many, many times faster, than a gram of an elephant's? We see this scaling law all across the animal kingdom, but we still don't have the full story on why it happened.
And that really leaves us with a final thought. Once you start looking at the world through the lens of these 4 pillars, you start to see the hidden machinery that runs everything. You see it everywhere. So now that you know the rules of the game, what biological mysteries, what wonders are you going to see out there?